Hello guys, it's 899 here and welcome to today's video where today we're going to be going through NRL tips and predictions for Round 1 2025. But it's been a while. It's been a while since we've done this, and now we're going into Vegas. So I did put a poll in terms of how this video would format, saying should I just focus on the Vegas games and then do a regular Round 1 next week, but yous wanted all of the matches, so I'll quickly at the beginning of this go through who I think will win the English Super League game and the Women's International, and then we start with the actual NRL draw. Wigan-Warrington to open up. I think this is going to be a very exciting match, a good setting of the tone for the NRL Vegas event. I think this will be maybe low scoring, I think quite close, but I do think that, I mean, you got to go with the back-to-back champions in Wigan winning this match, but I do think it's going to be a 1-12 situation. Now, Australia versus England in the Women's International. This is the first time since the 2017 Rugby League World Cup where the Lionesses and the Jillaroos are playing each other. Honestly, kind of mental, especially with the current talk about potentially at the end of this year being a Ashes test between Australia and Great Britain. Could be cool to see if this sort of thing does happen with the women's game as well. But yeah, I think it's going to be a pretty good game. Show what the girls are all about, but I think Australia should be able to win this. I think 13 plus. To be fair, I think I'm probably very much disrespecting the English team, but I just think it would be a very exciting matchup. And now, without further ado, let's get into the NRL. The opening match of the NRL season sees the Canberra Raiders take on the New Zealand Warriors. Both teams kind of had a bit of disappointing 2024s coming off of their years in 2023, where, you know, the Warriors came forth, made a prelim final, and the Raiders snuck into the finals in 2023, but put the Knights to the sword for a lot of the match and only just ended up losing. But both teams failed to make the finals. Now, Canberra look like they have a pretty interesting team of a bunch of young guns. Feel like this is definitely going to be a team over the next coming years we're going to see starting to do the increase and get better. The Warriors, they're a hard team to predict. Like I said at the beginning of last year, they're essentially a team that's either going to be extremely good or just completely miss the mark. And they kind of did that last year, but I think they can definitely start improving from here. And I believe from this match, the New Zealand Warriors will start the season right and get the opening win. Now we move on to the final of the NRL matches to be taking place at Las Vegas. It is the Penrith Panthers against the Cronulla Sharks. Now, of course, Penrith, I mean, it's the annual poaching, but this time it is a very serious player. It is Jerome Luai who is now leaving, which is now going to be an interesting question. I mean, obviously people are talking about is how is Jerome Luai going to do without Nathan Cleary at the Tigers? But I feel like you could even ask that question of how is Nathan Cleary going to go without Jerome Luai? It's interesting with Penrith because this is kind of the first year in quite a while where the accelerator in terms of people, how they predicting they're going to go is getting off ever so slightly. Now, the Sharks is a team that I very much have high up in the NRL this year. They've brought in Adam Fanua-Blake. I think this is going to be a very interesting time as well. Hazelton, I believe, has re-signed with them as well. You've got, hopefully, Nico Hines, I think, will have a breakout year. Because, I mean, to be honest, out of all the players, he's gotten probably the most stick out of anyone for their performances. And to be completely honest, I think about most of it's a bit unjustified. But yeah, I do think this is going to be an epic match to close out the NRL's Vegas event. And I'm going to go for the upset. I think the Sharks will win. Set the tone. Now we move on to the NRL matches that take place in Australia, where we go to Thursday, the 6th of March, where you have the Sydney Roosters taking on the Brisbane Broncos. Now, pretty interesting storylines coming out of this match. Obviously, you got the Sydney Roosters, who have unloaded a considerate amount of talent. That is the big thing. People thinking like, oh, they're going to have a bit of a rest year, then they're going to build themselves back up in the next coming years. But I mean, they've still got some pretty decent players. I mean, Dom Young, still a pretty good winger on his day. You've got Mark Nawaqanitawase, who I think is going to get Rookie of the Year. And I also think as well, Chad Townsend's going to be an interesting look in of how he will go at halfback. Now we go into the Brisbane Broncos, and they've pretty much got like the oldest halves pairing in NRL history with Ben Hunt and Adam Reynolds there. But I do think this is definitely, like, if any coach was going to turn this team around and, like, you know, put the fear of God into them, it's going to be Michael Maguire. And yeah, I think this is going to be very much a make or break season here for the Broncos of how they can bounce back from 2024. And I think they will win. I think the Broncos will get the win over the Roosters. Now we move on to the Friday, the 7th of March, and at 6 p.m. we have, in terms of betting, probably the most even match you could possibly have. It is the West Tigers up against the Newcastle Knights. The Tigers have coming off a third straight wooden spoon, but have recruited heavily. They've got Jerome Luai, they've got Sunia Taruva. Those are some big boy players. Did lose David Clemmer though. And they also lost John Bateman as well. So, yeah, they've lost a bit, but they've gotten big talent players. You know, a bloke who's like been able to win premierships with Penrith. Obviously, their second year under Benji Marshall, there is a lot of optimism around this team, thinking about how they're going to not make the spoon this year. And some of them even say challenge for the finals, which is a bit ease up. But when we go from the team where everyone has very optimistic hopes for a team that, for some reason, it seems like someone in a Knights jersey slept with everyone's mother because people do not like the Knights this year. It's essentially been like, oh, they don't make the finals, or some saying the wooden spoon, which I think... Now, obviously, when it comes to the Knights, it's all the talk about, oh, Kalen Ponga / halves pairing, which it now seems to be Fletcher Sharp at 6 and Tyson Gamble at the 7, which should be pretty interesting. I mean, we saw it kind of firsthand in the match against the Roosters in the final game of the trial. Yes, it was a trial, but I mean, you saw when the Knights got going with their ball movement, they were going pretty darn well. So I think there is, whether or not the Knights makes the finals, I'm not too sure, but I don't think they're going to get the spoon, like, grow up. But I'm very excited to see, especially with the news of whether or not Dylan Brown comes to the Knights. Apparently, it's like the most expensive deal in NRL history, $13 million over 10 years, which is actually more than Tino Malawi's deal with the Titans. But yeah, very split down in the betting markets. $1.90 for the Tigers and $1.94 for the Knights. And as a Knights fan, I'm going to say, yeah, we're going to win. We're just going to win. Now we go to the final match on the Friday, the 7th of March. And it's the battle of the geriatric coach. It is the Dolphins up against the South Sydney Rabbitohs. Now, the Dolphins have done some pretty decent recruiting. I mean, they've got Daniel Sophie. I mean, that's a big boy veteran presence you have there. But also, the Rabbitohs have done quite well. So, Lewis Dodd from England. Very excited to see how he goes. And obviously, the big chatter, of course, being Wayne Bennett is back at South Sydney, which is... Obviously, he can turn chicken shit into chicken salad, but with the way the Rabbitohs were last year, it'd be very impressive if they can climb that mountain, which I think is pretty darn big. It's basically Mordor at this point. And obviously, you've had the breaking news of Cameron Murray now being out for probably the entire season, and you've also got Latrell Mitchell out, so even more bad luck from the Rabbitohs there. And I kind of think, yeah, the Dolphins are looking for revenge here. Obviously because of Wayne Bennett leaving, and I'm going to say the Dolphins will win this match. And honestly, in terms of a bit of an awakening call, I reckon they're going to belt them badly. Now we move on to the Saturday, the 8th of March at 5:30. You got a good big Sydney team rivalry here. You've got the Dragons up against the Bulldogs. Now, Dragons, I think, look really interesting this year. Obviously, they've got a brand new spine. You got Gutho, you got Damien Cook. That's big boys. We even got David Clemmer in there. Because to be fair, every successful team needs some mongrel, and there's no bigger mongrel than David Clemmer. Like, that's pretty good. And obviously you got the Bulldogs as well, who are a team that just keep getting better every year, and it's getting to the point now where it's just like, yep, this has to be one of the contentions for the Year of the Dog. Like, I think they'll make the grand final this year. I think everything will start to finally form into place, but I think this is going to be an absolute belter of a clash. I do think this will be an absolute belter of a clash, but I do think the Bulldogs will just be good enough to get it over the line against the Dragons. Now we go into the final game on the Saturday, and we have the Manly Sea Eagles up against the North Queensland Cowboys. The Manly Sea Eagles and the Cowboys both won their respective elimination finals before unfortunately losing in their semis. But yeah, Manly, very interesting team. Very interesting. Not a lot. I think of every team in the preseason, Manly were the quietest. They've just been moving in silence. They're being rather ominous. And, you know, that sometimes really much works in their favour. I mean, Manly have got a pretty decent team, and I think hopefully Luke Brooks and Daly Cherry-Evans just keep on improving. The Cowboys have lost a bit of veteran talent, which makes me put a little bit of a question mark on them making the finals, but, I mean, they've still got some pretty decent talent like Drinkwater, whoa. And you've also still got some young players coming into the side. And you also got John Bateman. in the most random signing, but you got John Bateman. Hey, you need a proper Englishman in your side. But yeah, I think this is going to be a pretty interesting match. I'm going to say that I think Manly will win. I think it's going to be probably just like 14 points. It'll be something like that. But just to see as a bit of an indicator of where the Cowboys are currently with like the teams that were finishing around them. And now we go into the final match of the first round. Sunday the 9th of March, we have the Melbourne Storm against the Parramatta Eels. Essentially, in terms of my predictions, if you haven't seen them, it is pretty much the complete opposite end, because I have the Melbourne Storm coming first, and I have Parramatta getting the spoon because I just like to see Western Sydney squirm. But yeah, it's a very interesting match specifically, just to see where the Storm are as well. Like, it's going to be pretty exciting to see how they'll go this year, because I have them winning the premiership this year. Parramatta, it's hard to tell. Moses, really good. Lomax, that pairing needs to be very good. I think it needs to be very good, and you need a lot of players to step up. Dylan Brown, what's going to happen with him, in my honest opinion? I think he should stay at Parramatta. Genuine honesty, even though the Knights are the ones going after him, I think he probably should stay at Parramatta, because as soon as you get like the biggest deal in NRL history, there is immediately a target on you. And I don't know if I could trust the Knights' playmaking future in Dylan Brown. So I think this will be a very interesting match to see where both teams are, but I am going to say I think the Storm will win this game. And that's going to be the end of the video. Who do you guys have this round? Even include the Vegas matches that aren't NRL adjacent. Let me know in the comments below. Thank you all very much for watching. If you want to join my NRL Fantasy and NRL Supercoach just before the season starts, please. It's a ghost town in there. Please come on. Please join them. Anyways, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all later.